Oh no, it's time for the Gotham Knights review again and I'm not enjoying it. I was not expecting much good from this series and it's still underdelivered, and this episode was like self-parody. So who are the Gotham Knights? A ramshackle bunch of mostly criminals that the show chooses to glorify. The Joker's thief daughter Joella, her thief friends Harper and Cullen Rowe. Harper is bi and Cullen is trans, and after episode 1 I tend to call them Dead Name and Dead Name's sister. They have the new diversity Robin, though quite how woman equals diversity is anyone's guess when they're over half the population. Batman's adopted son Turner, who carries a katana around to look edgy, and his friend the Cluemaster's daughter, Stephanie the 29-year-old schoolgirl, and they're pitted against the ruthless and rich bad guys, the Court of Owls, who offed Batman in episode 1. Any questions? Put them below. So why is Gotham Knights so bad? In short, the show is filled with shameless propaganda, pushing the message pretty relentlessly, as well as pushing repackaged Marxism that's never really been tried apart from all of the times it has and has caused horrible misery. The worst part of this episode has an Irish organised crime group running a protection racket. The heroes, the Gotham Knights, go to rob them, and it turns out that Dead Name's sister used to date one of the gang's leaders. What are the chances? And she also worked with them before ripping them off. Dead Name is irate that his sister would work with this organised crime gang, despite being fine working with the Joker's daughter and also an unnamed benefactor in order to rob Bruce Wayne's safe, and Dead Name intently wants to know why she did it. And no joke, they really do it. She tells Dead Name, I'm serious, she tells Dead Name that she did it for them, in order to pay for their top surgery. They did it! They tried to pass off her being involved in organised crime in order to pay for her siblings' transgender surgery as a good thing. They just can't stop themselves. This is the hill the writers have chosen to crucify themselves on. Remember, this is supposed to be a superhero show made with a young audience in mind. Now, comics have always kind of been a vehicle for propagating the creator's ideas, be it propaganda against the Soviets, or World War II Germany, or the creator of Wonder Woman and his very speciality interests. I did a whole video on that if you want to watch it. In short, he really liked being tied up by women and wrote it into his comics a lot. An uncomfortable amount, in fact. You try reading early Wonder Woman if you dare, I won't stop you. Go and see for yourself. Almost every issue, the art is bad and someone's going to get hogtied. And it's still more comfortable to read than the character Steamboat Bill from the original Captain Marvel. Now, I don't want you to look that one up, but suffice to say, it's a depiction of an African American gentleman, and it's more than a little minstrelly. Anyway, back to Gotham Knights. How did we get to that effing debacle? The episode starts off and some thugs walk into a bar to shake it down for money. They're unhappy when the money is produced and it's short, so they smash the bar up and set it on fire. And this isn't a very clever way of doing business, and that's why this scene makes very little sense. Maybe if the bar owners had come up short on the money repeatedly, or refused to pay you, or been holding out on you, then maybe you have to make an example of them. But by doing this, all you're doing is making it harder for them to pay you in the future. Also, turning up with bats to shake a place down in America is probably a good way to find yourself showered with buckshot. The problem with this is that the people who wrote this part don't understand how a protection racket operates. Protection rackets don't work that way. The object is getting money from the business owners, not smashing their stuff. You only smash people's stuff if they refuse to pay you. If you just smash people's stuff and take their money and never do anything for them, well, what's the point? They could just call the police for that. The next problem is a bit nitpicky. Diversity Robin is in bed when her mother comes in and sees her dirty combat boots on the floor. Now, is it just me, or are those the cleanest dirty boots I've ever seen? The mud is barely in the treads show no sign of wear, there's no mud ground into the carpet, it's just another sign that nobody on this show can be bothered to try. The mother is also surprisingly chill here, and I have to imagine if her kid tracked mud through this lady's house, they'd be looking at a serious whooping. There is a parents' luncheon coming up that Mom is expected to go to, and Robin says to her mother,
"Your label will always be badass mom who saves lives on the regular, in my book."
It's almost uncanny how well they managed to capture the relationship between a mother and her teenage daughter. Of course the black single mother is an MD and a valuable member of society, and later we have a whole load of dirty cops again, and don't you worry, they're all white men as expected, working with the mob, who are also all white men. So yeah, once again, the show's propaganda, faux anti-racism, just ends up looking a lot like racism. But we'll get to that, because almost nothing happens in this episode. Meanwhile, Stephanie brings donuts and information to the Gotham Knights' hidey hole in the school belfry. She's been looking into who was paying for the old lady linked to the Court of Owls care home that they found last episode, and just when I think I can't like dead name less, they choose to talk with a mouthful of donut. Stephanie is checked and says the care home is not being paid for by Cressida, the treasonous Alfred stand-in who helped off Batman, as Stephanie had expected, because she says Cressida is smart, but not smart enough to not print her name in the visitors logs taking presents to the old lady, which is how you all found out that she was a traitor in the first place, because Cressida is one of those super smart stupid people who is, you know, meticulously reckless. The old folks home is instead being paid for by a shell company belonging to the Court of Owls, in order apparently to protect their finances, and they supposedly have huge amounts of money going through this account. They're using the same account to pay for the old lady, the daughter of their assassin, and that's compromised their entire money laundering operation. And the Owls chose the Irish mob to clean their money for them. Money laundering doesn't work that way. You're trying to make the money look legitimate, not more dirty. The Owls are giving money to professional criminals who run a protection racket and commit arson to clean the money for them, as opposed to how this usually works. You have a clean business, like say a bar. So let's say you've sold something illegal and made $1 million, or you're a politician who's done a dodgy favour for someone. You can't take that money and buy a house with it, because the government are going to be very curious where you got that money from. But you can cook the books at the bar that you own and make it look like the bar is making twice as much money as it actually does. Then you don't look like a criminal, you just look like someone running a very successful bar. So you've taken your dirty money and made it clean. Or you could pretend to be an art painter, so when someone's giving you dodgy money, it just looks like they're buying a foul painting for immense amounts of money, and you have an excuse to give the government where you got your $1 million from, and the person doing the buying can even stay anonymous. The Knights go to the address listed for the shell company, and the writers don't know what a shell company is either. They instead find a load of warehouses. It just happens to be a company being run by the Irish mob. The Knights break in, get into the safe, and it's full of money. There's also an unfeasible amount of money just laying on a pallet on the floor. The Knights surmise that this money must belong to the Court of Owls, which is immensely stupid of them to just have a pallet of unsecured money lying around on the floor in a room full of mobsters. The Knights take the money and flee in a van, and are pursued through the streets by the Irish gang and the dirty cops, and eventually the Knights get away by throwing money out of the back of the van, causing people to block the streets in order to grab the cash. The Knights then get credit from the press for being just like Robin Hood and redistributing wealth, which just makes the writers sound even more like Marxists. And no, comrades, you don't get to claim Robin Hood. Robin Hood was taking goods, money and food seized from citizens via taxation imposed by a king against their will, and then giving it back to the people who the tax collector had taken it from, as opposed to wealth redistribution, where you're taking money from people who've earned it, from businesses who've been extorted in this case, and giving it to people that you think deserve it. In this case, random people on a street. And where has wealth redistribution ever gone wrong? Apart from, well, the Holodomor, the Holocaust, the Great Leap Forward. So no, in the story of Robin Hood, comrades, you aren't Robin, you're the tax collector. The knights are happy to take credit for the wealth redistribution, despite intending to steal the money for themselves, and only giving it away as a method to escape from the dirty police.
Another case of a man taking credit for a woman's work.
But I guess sometimes it's fine to take credit for something you didn't do. It's all a bit of a up really. The writers just can't not be massive hypocrites. There's also a subplot with Harvey Dent, as probably the Court of Owls are manipulating him into losing his mind and eventually cause him to become Two-Face. They played him some music through a phone call, he blacked out, and when he woke up he'd lost several hours and found himself in a married woman's bed. I know, I hate it when that happens to me. Can they hurry up and cancel this show now? Because this is dreadful. At least there can't be much left. Oh, this was episode 5 of 13, so it turns out there's quite a lot left, and knowing my luck, this will probably get renewed.
Those look good. A big salty clam would sure go great with this heat.